My mother froze when a little girl ran up to me and said, "Can we go home now, Mommy?" My name is Whitney Cole. I was 33 years old when I found out my sister had died 2 months earlier and left behind a 5-year-old daughter nobody bothered to tell me existed. It happened in the produce aisle at Harris Market on a Tuesday that smelled faintly like overripe bananas and floor cleaner. I remember that because my cart only had coffee, eggs, and frozen dumplings in it, and I was standing there squeezing avocados like I had all the time in the world. Then a woman tapped my shoulder. "Your daughter is adorable," she said. I laughed automatically, a short, awkward sound. "I don't have a daughter." The woman's smile collapsed slowly instead of all at once. "She's been following you since the park." And there she was, small, brown hair tucked behind her ears, holding a faded purple stuffed elephant by one leg. She walked straight toward me without hesitation and slipped her hand into mine like she'd done it before. "Can we go home now, Mommy?" Something cold opened underneath my ribs, because I knew that face. Not hers exactly, but close enough that my body recognized it before my brain did. Vanessa. My older sister had the same eyes when she was little, same serious expression, same slight head tilt, like she was always listening to something nobody else heard. My sister who had apparently disappeared. My sister who was apparently dead. My sister my mother spent years teaching us not to mention too much at dinner. The foster woman arrived a minute later, breathless, embarrassed, one sneaker untied. Her name was Pam, mid-50s maybe, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. "I am so sorry," she kept saying, while trying to coax the little girl away from me. But the child wouldn't let go. "She does this sometimes," Pam said quietly after a while. "Finds someone and attaches." The girl looked up at me. "I'm hungry." Her voice was calm, certain. "Can I have strawberry milk?" I should have said no. I didn't know this child. I didn't owe anyone anything. I liked my life small and controlled and quiet. I ate dinner standing over the sink most nights. I worked too much. My apartment looked like nobody really lived there. But somehow I ended up walking toward the dairy aisle with her still attached to my hand. Pam watched us for a second too long. "You two look alike," she said softly. Nobody spoke after that. Outside, we sat on a bench while the little girl drank strawberry milk through a foil straw with both hands wrapped around the carton. The stuffed elephant rested in my lap because she'd handed him to me without explanation. That's when I saw the tag sewn into the seam. Lily Wood. My last name. Underneath it was an old phone number. I stared at it until the letters blurred. I'm a forensic accountant. Numbers are usually the safest part of my life. They behave, they reconcile. People lie. Spreadsheets don't. But something about that tiny fabric tag made me feel suddenly unsteady in a way I hated. "What's your name?" I asked carefully. "Lily." "And your mommy?" She shrugged first, then quieter. "She went away." Children say horrible things gently sometimes. I drove back to my office afterward and sat in the parking lot, watching the dashboard clock change minute by minute while my coffee went cold beside me. I already knew before I looked. But I looked anyway. The phone number belonged to Vanessa Wood, my sister. The obituary was 4 sentences long. No mention of Lily. No mention of cancer either, though I found that later, buried in hospital billing records and a fundraiser page that had raised almost nothing. Aggressive stage 4 ovarian cancer. 36 years old. Dead for 10 weeks. I kept rereading the obituary because it felt incomplete in the same way my family always felt incomplete around my mother, like someone had removed important paragraphs before handing it to me. I called child welfare the next morning. That was when I learned my mother already knew. 7 weeks earlier, the state contacted Lorraine Wood, next of kin. 7 weeks. My mother knew Vanessa had died, knew there was a child, knew Lily was in emergency foster placement, and never told me. Not at Sunday brunch while she criticized the waitress for bringing cold toast, not while asking me to review her tax return. Not once. When I confronted her, she sighed before speaking. That's what I remember most. Not guilt, not shock, annoyance. "Whitney," she said, "why are you digging this up?" Digging this up? Like Lily was paperwork. Like my sister was some embarrassing family incident that refused to stay buried correctly. I didn't yell. I almost wish I had. Instead, I sat at my desk, twisting a paperclip apart, while she explained, in that careful, cold voice, that Dean and Sloan were better equipped to take the child. Dean, my younger brother who once borrowed money from me and forgot about it for 18 months. Sloan, his wife who smiled too quickly and asked strange questions about survivor benefits before anyone even had custody. "They have a real family environment," my mother said. I looked around my office while she spoke. One desk, one dying plant, one woman eating almonds for dinner 3 nights a week. Maybe she wasn't entirely wrong. That part bothered me most. I met Lily officially 3 days later during supervised visitation. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, social worker in the corner pretending not to listen. Lily climbed into the seat beside mine without speaking. I handed her strawberry milk. She peeled the straw carefully. "My mommy drank this when she was sick," she said. I nodded because my throat stopped working. "She said it tasted like being little again." There are moments that rearrange something inside you quietly. No music, no drama. Just a child saying one sentence while swinging her feet above the floor. After a while, she placed the purple elephant into my lap. "You keep Plum," she whispered, "so you won't be scared." I almost laughed then, because fear wasn't really an emotion I allowed myself anymore. I allowed irritation, work, bitterness sometimes, petty satisfaction when audits exposed dishonest people. But fear? No. Then again, maybe organizing your whole life around being unnecessary to others is just fear wearing expensive shoes. Vanessa's letter arrived a week later. "Birdie," it said on the envelope. Nobody called me Birdie except her. I stared at it for 2 days before opening it, because some part of me already understood the damage waiting inside. My mother told Vanessa I agreed with her. That was the first sentence that made me physically put the letter down. Apparently, when Vanessa got pregnant, my mother told her to give the baby away quietly or leave the family. And somewhere in that conversation, she told my sister I thought she was selfish too. Meanwhile, my mother told me Vanessa chose to disappear because she wanted distance from all of us. 2 lies, one aimed in each direction. A wall built carefully from both sides. I sat at my kitchen table reading that letter while the television murmured in the background to nobody. My pasta had gone cold beside me. I kept thinking about Vanessa alone in some apartment, raising a child while dying slowly, and believing I abandoned her willingly. And the horrible thing is, part of me had abandoned her. Not intentionally, but passively. I accepted silence because silence was easier in our family, You didn't ask difficult questions if you wanted peace, and I always wanted peace more than truth. That realization sat heavier than the grief. By the time the guardianship hearing happened, I was exhausted in a way sleep doesn't fix. Dean and Sloan wanted Lily. Or maybe they wanted the house. Or maybe they wanted to look like good people while wanting the house. Human motivations are ugly that way sometimes, mixed together. My mother sat behind them in court wearing her church coat. Perfect posture, perfect lipstick, like respectability itself. Then the judge read Vanessa's guardianship designation out loud. Whitney is the only person in this family who never stopped being kind. I cried then, quietly, embarrassingly. Not because it was fully true, because it wasn't. I had stopped trying years ago. But Vanessa believed I would have come if I'd known, and somehow that hurt worse. The judge granted me temporary guardianship that afternoon. Outside the courtroom, Lily slid off the bench beside Pam and walked over to me. She touched my face carefully, like she was checking whether I was staying this time. "Can we go home now?" she asked. Home. Such a small word for something people spend entire lives failing to build correctly. She lives with me now. My apartment is louder, messier. There are crayons in the junk drawer and strawberry milk permanently in the refrigerator. Sometimes she wakes up crying for Vanessa. Sometimes I sit in my car after work longer than necessary because I'm scared I'm failing her already. Sometimes I hear myself sounding like my mother, and it makes me physically sick. People think healing feels warm and obvious. Mostly it feels awkward, like two lonely people learning each other's rhythms in a too small kitchen. Last week, Lily asked if I was going to leave too. I told her no immediately. Then later that night, I sat awake, wondering whether anyone in our family had ever really meant that word when they said it. No. Stay. Forever. I don't know if broken things become whole again. I think sometimes they just become quieter. But every night before bed, Lily still hands me Plum for a minute while she brushes her teeth. "Hold him," she says, "so he knows where we are." And every single time, I do.